What's up guys, welcome back to another video. The trade from yesterday ended up being a complete banger. Now we weren't sure at the start of the day. We were kind of leaning 60-40 in, either direction. But as it came time to the news itself, with all of the confluences stacked up, we managed to get a trade, and I posted the trade publicly on X if you were following me there. Like, the entry was shared and the TP was basically hit in like 20 minutes. And so that makes it 130 wins out of the last 165 public trade calls that I've made on this YouTube channel in the year of 2025. Now, fun fact, in about 3 days, I'm going to be hosting a live masterclass breaking down this exact 80% win rate strategy completely for free. If you'd like to sign up, it's as simple as clicking the first link in the description box below. But otherwise, let's get into the video to hopefully replicate the success that we had from yesterday. But first of all, I'm going to break down the trade idea from yesterday because I think this is a very valuable lesson. First of all, price came into that 1 hourly order block that we were talking about. Like, essentially there were two scenarios that was going to happen, right? One is prior to the news at 8:30, you are going to go above the order block, right? And then 8:30 you'll retrace and price will go up. That was the bullish scenario. That would have been in line with the daily buys that we had from yesterday, which was towards the bullish direction. However, I also marked out the fact that on the flip side of the equation, you also could get rejected off of the order block, which was seeming very likely. And the only way to tell was to wait for price, right, to react from the order block at exactly some key timings. And for yesterday, it was 8:30 a.m. The moment 8:30 a.m. happened, that's when you got the CISD. The moment that happened, that was when I placed my first entry. On the second entry, you will have this fair value gap right here. That was when you could have added to your position or just entered the trade in general if you missed the initial CISD. And the third one was when you got another order block forming here. Ultimately, this third entry would have probably been stopped out because you would have placed a stop above here and it would have been tapped out. But yeah, for the most part, that was the kind of rationale for the trade yesterday. But otherwise, yeah, today, let's get into the intraday trade for today. Starting things off on the weekly chart, we are still looking for a weekly bearish bias. However, so far things are playing out pretty slow. Probably for good reason, because we don't really have too much news this week. The only news that we have for this entire week actually is on Tuesday and Wednesday, which is today. And just taking a look at the timing for the news today, you have 8:30 a.m., 9:45, 10, and 10:30. So you have quite a bit of news today. So today, expect today to be just a pretty high probability trading condition, which means we're going to look to be aggressive today if the opportunity presents itself, just like what happened yesterday. So the ideal trading windows for today is going to be anywhere between 7:30 to about 11:30 a.m., which is an hour before news to an hour after news. But obviously, you want to pay attention to the exact news timings. So that's going to be 8:30, 9:45, 10, 10:30. The daily buy so far is pointing towards the downside because you have a previous bearish daily candle close. You're coming into this fair value gap right here. So going down onto the 1 hourly chart, we can see that we don't have too much information to work with other than the fact that, okay, we have an order block over here and we have another order block over here. Now, once you go into the lower timeframes, that is when, things start getting a little bit more clear, which is that you have the Asia high, and right above the Asia high, you have yesterday's Asia high that has yet to be swept. And this, of course, lines up with the order blocks that we've marked out. So the trade setup for today is going to be relatively straightforward. You're going to be looking for a sweep of Asia high and potentially even that level right there at 88,500. In the event that you sweep it at around the key timings, you're going to look for a 5-minute change in state delivery to the downside. And that's going to be scenario number 1. Now, for those of you that might be thinking, okay, does the Asia high need to be swept? No, it's just if the Asia high is swept into some sort of higher time frame key level in line with the daily bias, that is when you get a much more kind of like high probability play. Like, it's a textbook trade setup, but if you don't get it, doesn't mean that there is no trade for today, right? All you would be looking for is momentum trading. So at the moment, this level is going to be the one that you want to look for, 86,700. In the event that you break below this level by the time you watch this video or by the time, the news timing rolls around, then chances are you're going to be looking at a momentum trade towards the downside. This is, of course, going to line up with the fact that, Asia low is going to be broken and you're going to be looking at more of a accumulation, breakout, and then continuation type of setup for today. Meanwhile, the first scenario that I gave you is an accumulation manipulation, right? Trick everyone into thinking that the market is going up, but in fact it's going down, and then you have your distribution towards the downside. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it, but it's absolutely pouring right now. I'm really glad that I used this microphone, otherwise there's going to be some insane amounts of background noise. And in the event that you guys are wondering, okay, which scenario is more likely to happen, the truth is, I don't really know. And it's not really my job to know either. One thing you need to understand about trading is that it's not about predicting where the market's going to go or predicting, oh yeah, this is exactly going to happen, right? Because there's a big difference between being right and making money. And oftentimes you don't need to be right in order to make money. You just have to have a set plan that you're going to go for. And when it comes to the key timing, once you see confirmation in the behavior price, then yeah, you just dive in and it's super straightforward. But otherwise, now that Bitcoin is out of the way, let's get into Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is when you start getting a little bit of a conflict because Ethereum actually closed bullish yesterday. So technically speaking, you should be looking for a bullish trade. However, because the Bitcoin daily bias is bearish and we're expecting a bearish trade for Bitcoin, it means that in the event that Bitcoin dumps, well, Ethereum's really just going to follow. And right here, Ethereum, you have relatively equal highs. So that's going to be the setup where if you sweep above the Asia highs coming into these relative equal highs, that's maybe the time where you expect some sort of a, big distribution dump. But the opposite could also be true with Ethereum, especially because you have a bullish daily bias in the event where you close above this level. And you may start seeing price flip this resistance level into some sort of support and then going up from that point onwards. That is likely. However, I'm going to say that I will lean towards the bearish direction purely because Bitcoin, we are expecting it to dump today. Now, I could also be wrong on Bitcoin, in which case, then, yeah, it will be a lost trade. It is what it is. Overall, we're still sitting at about an 80% win rate. So in this moment, we just trust the system and execute the system. It doesn't really matter what we think. It matters much more that we follow the rules of the system. Now, zooming in onto the lower timeframes, actually, before I do, there is also some sort of order block right here that Ethereum has just filled. And that was filled during the London session. So yeah, the scenario number 2 is that as you go down from here, you break lower. That's just going to be a momentum trade towards the downside. Pretty straightforward. And then you have Solana. Let's take a look. We have a daily bullish bias as well. Well, this is a rare day where, the chart is actually not looking too similar to Bitcoin. But otherwise, with Solana, I think same thing. We're going to have, even though Solana has a bullish daily bias, it doesn't mean that we're just going to look for longs because at least on Bitcoin so far, we're expecting things to go down. And in the event that Bitcoin dumps, everything is just going to dump alongside with it. In terms of Solana, there is, this previous high has already been taken. So Solana is actually going to be a little bit more straightforward compared to Ethereum. You're just going to want to look for an hourly close underneath 138. And once this happens, bang, 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 that is going to be a pretty straightforward setup. And going into the 5-minute chart, yeah, nothing too much to see. You may also get a sweep above the Asia highs, at which point you may get the CISD when it comes to the news timing itself. So definitely something to pay attention to. Both scenarios are likely, and as usual, I will keep you guys posted on X. But anyways, yeah, quick video today. Hopefully the audio hasn't been too bad because it's absolutely pouring right now. But I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I'll see you guys later on X. Ciao, ciao.